The legal market, what's it look like at the moment? Well, do you know, I asked the marketing team to get a picture of a really busy looking lawyer, and that's what they've come up with. But any lawyer knows that is not what a lawyer's desk looks like. It's got files all over the place and papers all over the place. And that's the thing. Lawyers have got so much work on their hands. Currently, we're suffering and have been suffering since 2007 with additional pressure from the lenders. Of course, what happens when the market dips, the lenders catch a cold, and who do they look to bump up the coffers? They look to the lawyers. If they have any negative equity, the first thing they're going to do is see if the lawyer made a botch up and whether they can claim that negative equity back on the lawyer's insurance. On top of that, we also had the scenario where on top of losing the conveyancing market, with that taking a plummet with the recession, we also had the double whammy of personal injury referral fee arrangements disappearing, which meant that an awful lot of those claims that were flying about in the marketplace disappeared too, so less work for the personal injury department in the lawyers. On top of that, we also had a reduction in legal aid, so that you could no longer get legal aid for matrimonial matters, or most matrimonial matters, so a lot of people decided to stay together anyway. And we also had the incoming of outcome-focused regulations. So whilst this was a nice deregularisation of the marketplace, actually it means that the lawyers can no longer provide standardised service, which is a good thing in many ways, but they have to show that every single action and every single piece of advice that they have given has been in the best interest of the client, and that the outcome meets that requirement. So all of this is adding to a huge extra burden on solicitors. On top of that, we have the professional indemnity claims increasing the cost of PI insurance, and that is why we're seeing what's happening in the marketplace this month, with all of the lawyers having to renew their professional indemnity insurance and finding suddenly that their premiums have gone up by 20%. Can you imagine that, 20%? In many cases, the actual cost of the indemnity insurance premium is 15% of the total revenue. That's a huge chunk. On top of that, the excess on those policies has increased to about £20,000 in most cases. That means for the average high street lawyer, one claim could close them down. Hanky's getting wet yet? So what you end up with is a load of what we describe as high street zombie firms. As Anthony said at the beginning of the day, there's an estimated 1,200 firms that are on the SRA watch list, financial watch list. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The commentators in the industry expect it to be nearer 30%. I've certainly heard of at least 7 firms that have closed this week. The problem has been that the solicitors have been an extremely badly funded operation, both for intellectual business nous, but also hands-on cash and technology. And that creates an issue in that although they may want to process work faster and harder, actually they don't have the tools to do it. So this is where things get more interesting, with the incoming of the alternate business structure. From October 2011, thanks to the Legal Services Act 2007, hope you're all writing this down, there will be a test later, it stopped being the case that solicitors could only be owned by solicitors. Now you can have private investment from any company joining with a solicitor to create an alternative business structure. So let's see if we know our alternate business structures. In the style of Have I Got News For You, would anybody like to guess who is the odd one out in this list of organisations? Come on, anybody. Eddie Stobart? Do you think so? Eddie Stobart? No, Ian, I'm not asking you. That's cheating. It's not actually Eddie Stobart. Eddie Stobart got an alternative, a licence for an alternative business structure back in 2011. They also have a barrister's operation so that you can go directly to the barrister without having a solicitor in between. You've also got the co-op. The co-op is the largest alternate business structure. If you think that the co-op has an outlet in every single postcode in the UK, when you add up all the shops, the banks, the funeral parlours, the lot, they have one of the largest operations. Unfortunately, they're not doing that well at the moment, with a slightly large gap of 1.5 billion in their capital reserves, and their legal business also is lost, I think, 3.4 million at the last count. But I'm sure they'll sort themselves out eventually. DC Law, I'm going to tell you a bit more about. That's actually the in-house alternate business structure owned by Move With Us, and they were the 73rd ABS to come into being in January of this year. So that leaves us with the odd one out, which is actually Tesco's, which of course is ironic because it's always been known as Tesco's Law. So what does this mean? Well, once you bring a bit of money and investment into a solicitor's office and provide them with the technology, we've found that you can make quite a big difference. So DC Law, we actually opened in 2009 under the guise of Secure Legal Services, originally just there to service the chain breaker transactions that Move With Us's corporate department brought in. So they were really there just to service one client and weren't really bothered about the rest. Then suddenly, Move With Us realised that this was a real opportunity. So they sent me in and said, right, we want you to turn into something that we can sell to our estate agency network as well. So we went in and started applying some of the investment that Move With Us had been dying to do. We managed to redo their case management system, rewrite it so that it would allow the seamless flow of technology and to allow the communication with both the estate agents, the other solicitors, and of course Move With Us. We also looked at providing customer service training to all of the staff, something that very few and surprisingly few solicitors have the opportunity to do. This resulted in overall the change in the speed from ready to go from being at 71 days to plummeting to 51 days. So that was a real win immediately. We also managed to get our customer service responses up to 95% from 71%. So we were really, really pleased about that. What we found though was that this was only achievable through strong capacity management and through working with everybody else to provide a truly collaborative conveyancing approach. So that's all well and good, but it's just one hand clapping. You can be as fast as you like and ready as quickly as possible, but if the rest of the chain aren't up to speed, then that's going to still delay your exchanges. So Move With Us said, okay, so what are we going to do about it, and what can we do to help the rest of the industry to speed up too? So the first thing we thought about was leasehold. Now leasehold's the bad boy in the majority of transactions. It's always the one that takes a lot longer, usually 4 to 5 weeks longer, because the additional information required from the landlord. The difficulty with that is that nobody really understood exactly what they were trying to collect together to give over the information. Everybody had a separate form, and often you found that if the seller got the information from the landlord first, delivered it to the buyer's solicitor, the buyer's solicitor then say, well, that's all well and good, but I want to know about this, and I want to know about reserve funds. So it meant that you would end up with additional cost to the client, as well as additional questions going backwards and forwards, which of course created a huge amount of delay. And in an unregulated industry, such as the management companies and the landlords, there was no guarantee that you could actually do anything to speed that up. And in some cases, you might have been paying £350 for the information. So what we said is, right, okay, how about we get the industry together, because I'm a little bit naive like that. I think everybody wants to play with me. We'll get the industry together and we'll agree a set of standard leasehold inquiries across the board. And that's what we did. And on the 10th of October this year, the LPE1, exciting name, was launched in collaboration with the Society of Licensed Conveyancers, ARMA, RICS, ALA, the National Association of Estate Agents, and the Law Society. So that now across all of those industries, they have access to, free access to, the same form. The idea being that the landlords can get all the information ready up front, and when it comes to the buyer solicitors receiving the information from the seller solicitors, they know what they're going to get and they know that it will answer all of their questions. We anticipate that this will speed up the transaction between 5 to 10 days. So the next thing we're looking at is the protocols. So across the industry, you already have CQS protocol, which basically encourages lawyers to provide the information up front. What it doesn't do is deal with some of the old chestnuts that you get all the time about planning permission, buildings regulations, and breach of restrictive covenants. So consequently, you get solicitors arguing over the same old points time and time again. So what we did is we got together with the Conveyancing Association and produced a technical protocol which will be launched in December. This is at their corporate panel management level, so this means that this will touch and concern about 50% of all conveyancing transactions in England and Wales. So it should have a huge impact. So involved in that are Countrywide, LSL, Connells, plus all of the Conveyancing Association members, of which there are 50 serious conveyancers, so usually doing approximately 1,000 transactions a year. As I say, that will affect 50% of the transactions in England and Wales. So the next thing that we're looking at is e-conveyancing. And there have been several attempts in the past to undertake e-conveyancing. Some of you may be old enough to remember the chain matrix that the Land Registry tried to produce. I was actually involved in the pilot, cracking idea, but unfortunately they decided that estate agents shouldn't be involved in the process, which of course was a bit of a problem when they needed somebody to set up and make sure that all the transactions were logged into the system. They also didn't have integration with the case management systems, so they shelved that one, and now the Land Registry describe e-conveyancing as uploads to their secure portal. So we didn't really get very far there. The Law Society are also looking at an e-conveyancing portal, but although it's supposed to be launched this spring, I believe it's still in testing. So we're not going to hang around for them. So typical move of the style, what we've done instead was done our own Navigator. So Navigator is a secure online portal which provides the customer with all of the normal Move With Us case tracking, showing all of the milestones moving through. But added to that, we've got an electronic version of all the forms necessary for the lawyer to get the transaction underway. So it allows the client to upload and add to the Navigator the information required for the property information form, fixtures, fittings and contents list, plus all of the information that the lawyer will need to open the file. So it's really interesting. We opened it up and what we found was that we actually knocked 6 days off the time it took normally to get a case ready to legally prepared, ready to issue a contract. But what was more interesting was that we found that it actually reduced the time to be ready to exchange by 12 days. So from 6 days to 12 days, even though it only deals with the first part of the process. How so, I hear you ask? Well, actually, it's because we put some intelligence into the forms so that when the client is updating the information and completing the property information form, it then will identify, for example, if the client has said that they've extended the property. And it'll say, right, you've extended the property, please upload the planning permission. Consequently, the lawyers not only get all that basic information, but it's anticipated the additional inquiries that will be raised, and it makes sure that the information necessary to answer those inquiries is provided up front, which incredibly speeds up the process by those 12 working days. And it's really working, and we're looking to roll that out across the network shortly. So the next step is the Solicitors Extranet. This is being produced on top of the new Estate Agents Extranet. So this will provide the solicitors with the ability to view their cases in a much more dynamic way. All of their cases are listed in the way that we're used to, but it's a much better interface. And on top of that, there are additional notes colour-coded so that the conveyancer can see exactly what's been going on in the transaction and who has added which note. It means that the conveyancers have a much better feel for the transactions and are able to look at the overview of their work and identify where it can be passed out or where there may be additional activities required. So, going into 2004, as I say, we've got the Solicitors Extranet coming online. We're looking to get those protocols rolled out. With the service level agreements that we have with all of our panel, we're looking to make sure that we're able to provide a solid and robust service. I talked at the beginning about the perils of the solicitors who are unable to get their PI insurance. The idea obviously is to avoid that by working together to collaborate between ourselves, our conveyancing partners, and of course the estate agency network. Because together we can then provide faster turnaround of your pipelines, a closely managed service, and enable you to get on with what you do best, the business of selling houses.